let's just start right here because we're on with. I've got to be totally transparent with you, Joey. I didn't know a whole lot about you until a couple weeks ago when Henry said we needed to have you on. And since then, I've watched a handful of your sets. And you could quite honestly be the funniest motherfucker that I've heard since Ron White. Dude, your shit gets me, man. I mean, I'm playing it for my kids, like the ones all about sex and everything, and they're 11.
Yeah, you got to be selective with that.
Joey, I throw them into the fire, dude. Welcome to the EB adventure, man. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. That's fun. It's kind of that's the phase I'm in right now. Is like I think most people don't know about me, but I've been doing it for 10 years, so there's a backlog. So whenever people find out about me, it's cool to get that kind of reaction. And anytime you're getting mentioned in the same breath as the great Ron White, I mean that's a great start to a show.
You know what? Let's start there. Who were your inspirations growing up?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, when I was like a super young kid, I feel like it was not till later that I even got into stand-up. When I was a kid, it was all sports. It was all athletes. We talked a little bit before we came on, but I'm a Bay Area guy, so grew up, watching all the hometown heroes that are, displayed on Henry's head and right behind him, and you as well.
This is my mantle right here. This is
But then kind of started hearing about stand-up. I was in college when like Rogan's podcast kind of started, and he was talking about mushrooms and shit that I was very interested in. And then he started having comedians on, and I was like, holy shit, these guys are hilarious. And I kind of started far back. It was like watching the early like Eddie Murphy's Delirious and things like that, where I was like, damn, comics can actually be kind of cool. It's not all just guys who are talking about how sad they are. Like some of these guys are pretty sweet. And I feel like that kind of unlocked the door for me. And I did stand up once, and I got off the stage and I was like, that's it. That's the missing piece. That's what we're going to do pretty much forever.
So Joey, you're our second guest ever on the EB Adventure. This is a new podcast we just launched. We like to think, or our goal basically is to get people from all walks of life. Obviously, it's nice to have people connected with the sports world. Henry was saying you're a huge Bay Area sports fan. So I would say in the last podcast that we did, we had Johnny Mosley on. And it wasn't until about the 20-minute mark that we let Henry speak. So I think
that's true. Correct.
I think tonight, Joey, I wanted to let him fire off a question immediately, maybe even an intro to tell the people, Henry. Obviously, I introduced you as Henry fucking Markin. It's Henry F. Markin. But dude, Henry, thanks for connecting us with Joey, dude.
Dude, absolutely. I'm glad I get my one question in early. But no, Joey, I love comedians. I've grown up idolizing them. I've seen many rise and then fall and then some even come back, but I find them I think you are hilarious. I told you in the green room that I pretty much brought you to Indiana. I was showing your early stuff. I was like, this guy's going to blow up. And I knew it. I knew when you went on Comedy Central and you did all these things, these big specials, like, dude, I could see it from light years away. So I'm so stoked to be here. I'm so stoked to be talking to you. And yes, please,
Henry,
please make me laugh.
Joey.
Yeah.
Henry, what else happened in the green room? Did you get a text message?
Yeah. Okay. Yes, listeners. So here's what else happened in the green room. So Byrnes, Eric, you guys know Eric, real good guy. He texted me 5 minutes before showtime. Super cool of him. Hey, bud, I'm not going to make it. You're on your own. Eric.
No. Hold on. This is what I love about comedy, Joey. I keep everything truth. I keep everything real. That's where the comedy in my life always comes.
How about this? I'll come back. My turn. I'll come back. 4:46 p.m.
Read the fucking text message.
Yeah, 4:46 p.m. Joey arrives. Here we are, chilling, having a good, building rapport. I'm talking to one of my comedy heroes, and I'm like, great, this is gonna be a great evening. We got EB coming out in a few minutes. I get a text. I text him, where are you at? 4:46, because we agreed 4:45. I still think that time works the same way you do. I know there was a daylight saving situation a couple days ago. I don't feel like it has much effect here. I text you, where you at? 4:46 at approximately, exactly 4:50. You text me, going to sit this one out. And I got that text as Joey is sort of like here as he was spawned on the screen. And I didn't know how to tell him, hey, so bad news on the home team here. But then you came as I was delivering the news. So once again, you won, Eric. I don't know how.
The timing was brilliant. He was really starting to wind it up. He was like, unfortunate news. He's like, look, I know, he's one of the draws, but it turns out he's not going to be here. And then you just popped up on screen. He's like, oh, what the fuck?
So
Such
that was just
Such
as
bullshit.
just as he said that.
It was perfectly timed. And the first rule of comedy, timing, dude. You nailed it.
Oh my God.
Dude, so yeah, talk to me about that, because the stand-up bit. So I finished playing baseball, Joey, and Kelly Ripa and Mark Consuelos, we had the same agent, and they had a production company. And so they had this concept and idea for a show, and the name of the show was What's Next. So we shot a pilot for it, and I was going to be the host. And it basically was like, okay, here's this retired baseball player. He gets done. He has a lot of life interest, and he's off, and he's going to try underwater basket weaving, and he's going to run with the bulls, and he's going to be a stand-up comedian. And that was one of the things that we never actually did the full show of stand-up comedian because it never got picked up. But we did do in the pilot a couple of like bits where I went to a fucking comedy club, man, and there wasn't anybody in the stands, but we pretended in the crowd stands. There wasn't anybody in the crowd, but we pretended like people were, and we actually strategically placed people. And I made a couple dumbass jokes, and they're throwing shit at me just for the sake of the pilot. But dude, I actually at that point though started thinking about it, man, and I'm like, that's like that of all the things, and I'm not afraid of a microphone, I'm not afraid of a crowd. That got me a little bit. So go back to your comedy roots and like your inspirations and everything, but what was it like transforming into a fucking stand-up comedian?
Yeah, I mean, it takes is like a little bit of delusion mixed with the ability to grasp reality. Because when you first start off, you go and you get a few laughs, and it feels so like fucking good. Like when you get actual laughs from people who don't know who you are, and it's the very first time, and you get a few real laughs, and you get off stage, I was like, I am going to be amazing. And I was like, that was so good. And then you realize when you listen to the set 2 days later or whatever, oh, I kind of sucked ass. So you need like a little bit of both of those things. You need to realize when you're not actually going to be good. But for the first, probably 6 or 7 years, you have to think, I'm that guy, even though you're literally doing 3 minutes at, a laundromat in front of drifters in San Francisco. And you're still like, I'm going to be on fucking HBO. Like you got to be a little crazy, but you got to know how to actually edit yourself and not actually think that you're great when you're not.
So one thing that I learned when I got into radio and entertainment and television is that it's never as good or never as bad as you fucking think it is.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Because
it makes perfect sense.
Dude, I would get off the air at MLB Network, and I would come home. This could be like during the World Series. I'd be like, dude, I just fucking drilled it, man. Bathtub gin, towel. I'm going to Avenue tonight, just ripping it up. Woo! Like just on top of the world. I'll get home at 2:30 in the morning, and the show's replaying. And I'm 9 tequilas deep, and I'm watching this thing thinking to myself, I'm like, fuck, dude, that wasn't normal. That wasn't that good. But shit, at least I had a good time.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the depressing thing, and especially in the era of comedy that we're in now. The reason that I'm here is because I put out my own content. I put out clips that you saw, Henry, that you passed along, that now Eric's children have seen. But what that means is that after those shows where I'm like, dude, I crushed, I then have to often sit by myself and watch 45 minutes of me doing stand-up that A, isn't as good as it felt when I was doing it, and B, isn't even captured as well because you lose shit through camera than when you're in the room and all that. So I kind of have a rule. I'm like you. If I get off stage and I feel like I crushed, it's 9 tequilas deep time, and we're going to enjoy the night. And then like 2 or 3 days later, we can then go back and address reality and kind of watch the film and make, figure out what the clips are, make it better. But I do think it's important to not argue with the high of the moment because the experience you actually had is real, like it is when you crushed and it feels good, like people in the room felt that. It just sucks to rewatch yourself because we're always judgmental of ourselves.
So I got a question. Okay. Sure.
Well, this is relevant. It's time sensitive, and Joey told us how important timing is and everything.
Ask away. So go.
I have a daily podcast I do here on No Filter Network, right? It's a video podcast, and basically it's life optimization. And that right there, that is a nugget, Henry, which I will have. I'll write a blog now on that. It's important.
Shameless plug. Go for it. Yes, correct.
Of course it is, but it's important to not get lost in the high of the moment. That's what you said, right? Like that high moment, like it's don't let that go away, man. Like you fucking earned that, correct?
Yeah, exactly. I would say that. Like, let yourself enjoy it. That is why. Otherwise, it's just like an endless pile of work. You need that moment of success, and you need to not allow yourself to enter the analytical phase of whatever your creative process is. Sometimes you need to be like, that was a good show. Let's have drinks and chat with people. And like, this is why we play the game. This is why I fly all over the country, is to have this experience.
I'm so speaking of timing, I want to ask about the creative process. Like, I want to just give us like a brief glimpse into how your mind works and thinks and produces. Like, are you just at the gym and you see a guy just raw dogging a workout with no headphones and you're like, boom, that's a bit like where do you come up with your stuff?
Yeah, I'm glad you added in that it was the no headphones that he was raw dogging at the gym, because you don't want, we don't look. It's Equinox Hollywood down here. A lot of shit happens. You don't have to get into that. I've seen some very specific warnings on the steam room, if you know what I mean.
To each their own, but
yeah. Hey, man, get loose. You want to pay that much a month? Maybe you should be able to. All right. But
real quick. Where do you stand on the steam room, towel or no towel?
I'm a towel guy. I don't look, if someone wants to go no towel, that's okay, but that's not for me. I'm a humble guy. I'm just there to get the steam in. It doesn't need to be about my dick. Plus, it's my dick is a performance timepiece. It's not always in presentation mode, if you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you mean, Joey. Yeah. And I will argue that till the days are done, man.
Yeah. So the creative process. It's one of those things that just you never turn it off. I have a ridiculous notes folder in my phone, and it's like it could just be anything. It's just I do sit down to write, but I'm always going off of notes that happen in the moment. Like, I don't usually sit down and go, what do I want to think about today? I sit down and go, all right, what concepts of the 5 things I wrote down are funny? It could be a drunk conversation with a friend. Yeah.
I do the same thing. That's what I do for the inspirational stuff. It's like I'm getting little nuggets. That's why I even brought that up to you. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's the same thing. And like, I think a lot of it's like conversation or something, like, I don't know, it just fires. And I just have been doing it long enough to be like, there's an angle here. And even 1 out of 6 of those is even worth writing into. And then 1 out of 5 of those that I try on stage gets to stay. But the more you try, the more the cream rises, right?
Right.
So I think it's that. And then also sometimes I'll have nights where I can't sleep, and not a lot. I actually sleep pretty well, but like sometimes I'll be lying down and my brain will just start running. And while that's not great on the sleep front, I almost view it as like a positive, because some great bits, great content ideas, some of the most out of the box stuff has happened I think because I finally shut my brain down after mainlining freaking podcasts and show, and just there's just always shit going all day. I finally close my eyes and my brain can process stuff.
At that point, though, Joey, do you get up and write down what you have to, open the notes, and empty the bucket?
I roll over to my phone and I just type out some really basic stuff that I don't really want to get up, but I'll sometimes just start it's a note that's called night thoughts, because it could be a bit, it could be a show idea, it could be an idea for a podcast that the Lord knows I'm never gonna fucking launch, like it could be a lot of shit that's not gonna happen. But I really try to, if I'm being creative, I try not to shit on the idea. I try to just write it down, let more ideas come before I start like editing them down, because once I start doing that, I feel like it stops.
How much of your show is literally improv and like what the audience is feeding and how you give it back to them?
Yeah, that really varies show to show. I think on average with the headlining tour that I'm doing, it's probably like 75% material, 25% improvised, but you'll see the improvised stuff a lot more because I'm working on the material. And if I get a good crowd work clip, that's only going to happen once. I'm editing it, throwing it up later that week, and just posting all those. But it depends on the show. I did like a sales kickoff for a company, and I did like a couple jokes, and I realized they don't want to hear about me. They want to hear about them. So then I can do 45 minutes off the top. And so I did it fully improvised. So I can do that, but I really try to work material as well.
Dude, that's crazy, because from a speaking front, you have to know your audience. And it's, for example, like last night I talked to a girls' softball team, a high school girls' softball team. And it's the message, not only that, they were like 2-18. So the first thing is I'm talking to a high school girls' softball team, and I can't say fuck.
You're like, you guys are ass, dude.
Tough crowd. Yeah, tough crowd.
The F-bomb's one of my favorite words, and so a lot of it is like when I get emotional and start talking, they're just flying everywhere. But I had to basically, they didn't ask me to, I just did. But took out all the profanities, and then it was, well, what am I supposed to say to a team that's 2-18? And where's the inspiration there? But it's, the message obviously was one foot in front of the other. It's about incremental improvements, getting a little bit better every day, or in your guys' case, maybe being a little less terrible today than you were yesterday. So
trying,
just that's the idea. But yeah, I think the one thing that I've learned through all the speaking engagements, and the hundreds, I imagine by this point in my life, is you got to talk to the crowd. But when you go in though, and I guess it'd be similar, but when you go in, you got your set, man, right? Like, like I'm going from here to here to here to here with the transitions. Is that hard to stay on track, or more importantly, is it hard to get back on track if you do veer?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I always prepare enough material to fill the time, and then I'll usually build myself like specific off ramps where I'm like, all right, you can go and talk to the crowd here, but I'll try and remember what I want to like come back into with. Because sometimes if you go deep into crowd work, I mean, you're so in the moment, right? If you're doing a joke, you can, if you need to keep talking on autopilot and remember your next joke, you can. If you're in crowd work, you're just immediately there. So you can get a little bit lost, but I try to just remember like, okay, I try to separate my material into chunks that are thematic, so then I can remember like, oh, I have this whole group left to do, so then I can jump back in. But sometimes if a crowd, you can always build a plan, but before I go on stage, I try to be like, here's the plan. But if we rip it up and we just got to be live in the moment, do that, because you got to trust yourself. And I think those are sometimes the most special sets, because the crowd can feel it too. They're like, shit, he doesn't know where he's going. There's no way he could have written this shit that he's saying about this guy. Like, let's just see where this goes. And it's a high wire act, but when it goes well, it's super rewarding.
So I saw the bit. It just real quick. I saw this bit that you did pretty recently where you're talking about marriage. You just got married, and you said, I just married a lovely lady, and someone went, thank God. And then you just totally took that tangent was amazing, where you're like, wait a minute, did you just say thank God fuck you, bro. It's 2022. I'll marry a dude just to prove my fucking point. I thought that was brilliant, man. Like, and then you move that into your thing, and that was your set. It was amazing.
Well, the other thing is within that set, I watched actually the same one.
Is that right?
And you're like, I flip kicked up onto the altar, and I got and you know, I'm going to get married, and I got the fuckboy haircut. that was the. I mean, it's just, dude, you had me. And then it was a couple of these when you could relate to somebody, and there's so much truth in what you were saying, because I think we all would feel like that, married or not married, we all can really understand and relate to everything you were saying. And, you know, it seems like you're at that age. So my question to you was actually going to be, because, you know, I remember there's this one comedian, I'll think of his name in a second, but he did this whole fucking bit about his wife, and his wife, I guess it died. And, you know, it was like really, really, really fucking funny, but also like really dark, because she was, you know, apparently she was dead.
Yeah.
And so at the end, Bobby's his name. I'll remember the last name in a minute. He's East Coast guy. And so he comes off stage, and we're at the same sort of event. I was doing a speaking engagement, and, you know, he's the comedian they bring on at the end of the night. I'm like, Bobby, man, dude, that's some of the funniest shit I've ever heard. I'm really sorry to hear about your wife. He goes, my wife? Ah, fuck, she's back in Boston. She's doing just fine. I'm like, no way, you motherfucker. I'm like, she's alive. He's like, oh yeah, alive and well, man. She's cooking pasta for me tomorrow night. It's my favorite dish. She does it every time I get home from the road.
That's insane. And I mean, like, that's its own skill set. But like, I don't think I would ever, I don't know. Like, I feel like it's what's interesting to me about stand-up is having a thought or a feeling that I think is true. And it's like, well, maybe it's just me. I don't know. But then structuring it in a way that's funny, and then watching other people like really laugh and really relate to it, and connecting with the audience on a shared experience that's also true for me. So I'm not knocking it. Stand-up's a hard enough thing to do that, like, if someone's killing, I'm like, fucking dude, do it your way. But for me, it is that element of truth that I think makes it really rewarding for me, and fun, and I think relatable too.
So Joey, I saw on your LinkedIn page. I know I stalked the hell out of you.
LinkedIn.
Yeah, I know, crazy outlet, right?
One of the few comics with an active LinkedIn in the flesh right now, dude. Just trying to get some recommendations for my skills in Microsoft Excel.
I was gonna say, like, when I was doing my research, and I was like, no way this guy's a LinkedIn. And I was like, this is probably like another Joey Avery who's working in finance in Charlotte. And no, it was you with the same hair. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I saw that you like had pretty much regular jobs forever, and then you did things with, was it Chubbies, right? And you're still with Chubbies to this day?
Yeah, so that's one of the things that definitely is different from a lot of comics, because I've had a day job the whole time, and was simply a factor of wanting to have money. But like I wanted to have money, and I think it also allowed me time to cook creatively, because I've been doing it for a decade, and when you're living off drink tickets and a couple bucks at an open mic, that kind of sucks. For me, it was like, I always felt like one of the things that, I knew I could rely on, especially when you're early on and you're looking at people, you're like, damn, how are they so funny? And I was like, but I do think a lot of comics are lazy. I bet I can outwork people. So my thought was, if I work a full-time job and then I just hit open mics every night after, or in recent years also like edit clips into late in the night and just maybe outgrind people, but also have a little bit more money so I can afford a nice camera, so I can afford to take an aggressive deal on a road gig where maybe I'll only make a couple $100, but it's worth it to me because I'm trying to build a market somewhere. It kind of has allowed me to take that extra money and invest it back into myself. The thing that sucks is just how much time it takes to do a job for someone else as well, but it's worked out for me.
Wow.
So you're still currently working right now?
Yes, I am. I don't know how much longer that's going to last, and that's public, and the bosses know that, so I feel comfortable saying that out loud. But I think they've been, at Chubbies in particular, they've been super supportive of my career, and they're like, if it needs to scale back, we can renegotiate, and but you have a space here as long as you need, and we're all fans, and they're flexible with my travel schedule, and so they make it easy to stay there.
So they are fans, right? I mean, they love your shit.
Yeah, everyone, like all the founders, every boss I've ever worked for, all most, I'm sure, I bet there's got to be someone at the company who's like, that guy's a piece of shit, but I haven't met him, so I'd rather they just keep their mouth shut.
And Chubbies that's the underwear company, right?
It's more, we kind of got popular for short shorts initially, like bringing back short shorts. Now it's kind of everything. It's more swim trunks, fun kind of Hawaiian shirts, short shorts, but even great like sportswear and outerwear, and Chubbies.com, folks.
I was gonna say, there it is. I was waiting for that, the plug. That's awesome.
Exactly.
Wait, so you did the Chubbies podcast. Didn't you kind of start that? Wasn't that your baby?
Yeah, it was. That was really fun. I don't know if you ever listened to it, but it was a wild show. We had like we were doing like monologue jokes every week, crazy sketches. We used to do like physical challenges in the office. We were like chopping wood and stuff. Like it was a ridiculous show. It was really fun.
And this is while you're working. This is like you clock in and you squeak in a podcast, and then like you're chopping wood, and it's, hey, I need this by 3, get this done, and then going back to the pod.
Yeah, it was great because it was part of my job. Like one of the co-founders was on it, so they knew it was like, hey, there were times when I needed to block off a couple hours to write monologue jokes, and I was like,
oh my
that's
God.
A pretty unique job to be getting paid for while you're trying to become a comedian, and getting to kind of make that show what I wanted it to be, and it built a lot of helpful skill sets.
The one thing I learned, Joey, was we were at Super Bowl Radio Row. And when you have a platform and somebody has shit to sell, it's really easy to get them to come onto the platform.
Yeah.
So here we were. Well, that, and we had Ashley Haas, a supermodel, with us. So that
she was great.
It's incentivized people to come over. As
it was actually, and me, Byrnes. I know, you're getting a little older, but it's fine. Whatever. Continue. Yeah.
Fuck off, Henry. So back to what I was saying is that now I think that any company, no matter who they are or what they do, would be somewhat, I don't know, ignorance is the right word, but to not have a media outlet of their own to help sell their own shit. So, for example, if, Chubbies had a no filter account, live video podcast, and you're on there with the co-founders, and you guys are doing all this crazy shit and fun stuff, then all you guys do, you chop that up, you fire that out through social, you hit these viral moments, and it's free fucking advertising, man.
Yeah, that was kind of the thought, and it was fun. It was really fun while it lasted. What ended up really stopping it was, when the pandemic hit, and then we all split up, and then the company reorganized and all this, and then I kind of got more into the like, I can help with these certain things, but the amount of time that I want to spend on super creative stuff where I'm willing to like edit stuff after hours and all that kind of flipped towards my stand-up. It ended up not being as feasible. But in terms of what people should do, I mean, yeah, it's always been advertisement has bought space on classic entertainment properties, but now anything can be entertainment. So it's really just, can you be creative? And I think it's a really competitive time for that. So I think it's easier said than done, but if you can do it, I mean, there's a lot of algorithms out there that are ready to show people your shit as long as it keeps them on the goddamn app.
I don't know what your
the algorithms.
I fucking hate the algorithm. I don't know what your current ability to speak on this as an active Chubbies personnel member, but I mean, do you recall any instance where you said something in the office, you're like, oh fuck, this is not work appropriate. I need not say something like this ever again.
I think I've always gotten away with a little extra leeway because I think people know I'm a comic, and I also have a great shit-eating grin, so I think people just let it slide sometimes. Eric, you understand this premise, but I can't think of anything where I got like super reprimanded, but there were a couple times where people like even on like public episodes of the podcast, there was a conversation of like, you can't be making that joke. Like I made a joke about ISIS on there one time. It was just like a monologue joke. I was like, it was
Perfect.
something like, U.S. forces captured ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, still at large, his wife, Abu Bakr al-Bagmami. And it was just like a silly joke. But then they're like, bro, we can't be like taking shots at ISIS. Like, this is not, we're a shorts company. Like, you can't be posting this on your Instagram. And I was like, all right, for sure.
That's incredible. That's amazing. Did that, I bet that episode got a few downloads, little sales in the shorts department too.
Yeah. No, I'm sure it was great. I didn't look at the the geographic data of where it popped off, but
Did it pop off in the Middle East, you think?
Yeah, I was hoping it stayed over here.
So, dude, one of the things I think would be probably pretty annoying as a comedian. Now, could I say, is it comedian or is it comic?
Either one. It's
Okay.
interchangeable.
I think one of the things that would just be so over the top and just like, fuck me, throw up in my mouth every time I hear it. Like, you meet somebody and it's like, well, what are you doing? I'm a comedian. It's like, oh yeah, well, like, be funny. Right? Like,
Yeah, it's
that's
constant.
just,
It's always people are like, tell me a joke. And it's like, I mean, it's just maybe there was a time like back in the early comedy days, like the Borscht Belt days, where everyone was like spinning the same jokes and liking my wife like I like my coffee shit. But it's like, it's not even what I do. So I can look up a street joke the same as like your uncle at the party is going to give you. But like, I'm not going to be in a fucking Uber and like launch into the same thing. We're like, yeah, so I just got married, thought I'd have a different look, but it'd be fucking insane. It would be an insane thing to do, to launch into like a personal 5-minute joke about what's going on in my life. And it wouldn't even be funny because it's built to rhythmically make a room full of people laugh, not one person deal with an awkward situation.
Yeah. All right, so give us a little bit about your background, dude. You grew up in.
I thought you were gonna be like, so tell us a joke.
That's where. Right. Hey, my timing was off on that one. I just wanted to make sure we got the background in though, because went to Saratoga, played baseball.
Yep.
You know one of the best baseball players to ever play in the Bay Area in high school was a guy by the name of C.J. Ankrum. And he went to Saratoga, dude. He was obviously significantly older than you, according to Henry. But C.J. Ankrum hit 700 and was one of the baddest motherfuckers to ever play high school baseball. Then he went to Fullerton, played a little bit with the Giants, and then got released. Word on the street, it was just some kind of really awkward, like, I guess he goosed the trainer or something. And then that was it. That was his baseball career. That's
the Falcon way. That's how mine ended too. So it's perfect. So I grew up in Saratoga, went to Saratoga High. Like really loved playing baseball there. We were kind of a shit team at the time, but that allowed me to stand out. Like had a little bit of time on varsity as a freshman, got called up as a sophomore, and then junior and senior year got to be captain, and then senior year we like won league for the first time in a bunch of years. So it was a really kind of fun, special experience. Went to UC San Diego as a recruited walk-on, showed up, thought I was going to be on the team for a year. There were 16 recruited walk-ons when we got there, and they only kept one. So then all of a sudden I'm having this identity crisis because I was like, I'm a baseball player. It was like your show. It was like, what's next? But no one ever knew who I was. And I was in college, like doing P90X and like figuring out if I liked yoga and shit, and I had an offer to go to Santa Barbara City and I almost went that route. But then I was like, I didn't know if I was going pro, and I didn't want to go to like 8 colleges in 3 years. So I ended up just kind of doing the college thing, figuring out what I was interested in. I was lucky enough that I got to do a semester in Cape Town in South Africa, and that's where I started stand-up. And then pretty much after that, it was just 10 years of slowly going to open mics, trying to figure out the stand-up thing between San Diego and San Francisco until I was ready to come down to LA and actually make a run at it.
That is fucking brilliant, dude. You go to Cape Town, South Africa, right, to be a stand-up comedian, and immediately you're winning because of your accent.
Yeah, no,
right?
So I didn't know, like, I just went over there and I was like, I'll try everything, right? I had like a radio show. I did like one jujitsu class. I was like, fuck that noise. I don't want to break a kneecap or whatever. And then my friend was like, dude, we can buy weed from this bar. So they went, and there was an open mic, and he was like, dude, you're funny. You should do this. So I spent like 2 weeks practicing. I went over there, and you hit the nail on the head. I got up there because, and I kind of thought like, I mean, look, dude, South Africa, we don't have to dive into it. A lot of racial tension over there, right? Apartheid ended like in the 90s. So I was like, damn, I don't know if they're going to like a white boy, coming up here. Because the first show I did, aside from the international students, it was, pretty much all like Black South Africans. I was like, I hope they don't hate me, So I get up on stage, and the second I open my mouth, they were like, this guy's awesome. Because it's like, I'm a Cali guy. It's none of the baggage. It was just a totally different thing. And one of the great like things with comedy is if you can explain stuff to people that they're very familiar with, but in a different way, that's great comedy, because now you've illuminated something for people that they've kind of taken for granted, but they're familiar with it. And when you're in a foreign country, that's basically everything. Like all their day-to-day life was incredibly fascinating to me, and I had all these different angles on it, and they ended up responding really well to it. So it was actually the perfect place to start.
How is the weed at this bar?
The weed in South Africa, look, man, I grew up in Northern California, so it was not the best weed, but honestly, I kind of like low potency weed, because then I can smoke like a whole joint and just get a little high and not start being a fucking weirdo, and just be like a little fun.
So what does your wife think about all this? And the whole bit that, I just watched last night. I mean, it could obviously be taken in a few different ways. If, if she's sensitive, or if she looks too far into it. And I guess you could say the same thing, obviously, with my own wife and the everyday shit that she has to deal with from me. But how does she respond to everything going on?
Yeah, so at the end of the day, she knows who I am. We've been together for 10 years. We met before I went to South Africa, so she knew me before I'd ever done my first open mic. She's been along the whole ride. She's like my biggest fan. And she really gets comedy because she's been watching it with interest now for 10 years as well. So, I mean, I think you'd resonate with this. Like, your wife wouldn't have got into this if she didn't know what the full package of you was. So like there's a little bit of a, shit stirrer in me, but I think if I was doing some really weird, like negative shit about her, that wouldn't fly, but I wouldn't do that, and just me express. I imagine you're talking about the one where I'm like, yeah, I'm sure having sex with one person forever is going to be great. Like the dream. But she knows, she's like, I'm a dude. She understands.
the dream where she woke up in the middle of the night and is like, honey, oh, geez, I just had this dream about you having sex with all these women. And then you have the long pause, and you're like, why can't I have that dream?
Yeah.
So good, dude.
It's probably not her favorite joke, but she does get it, and she supports it for sure. So,
Joey, have you in your early or even recent years had a joke or a bit that kind of went sideways and you had to, I don't know, evacuate, or how did you even respond to it?
Yeah, I mean, in the early days, you probably like 40% of your jokes go dead sideways. So like it's been a while since I've like completely eaten shit. But these days, when I'm doing a long set, it's mostly stuff that I've done enough to know it's pretty good. And then I'll mix in one or two things that I'm trying for the first time. So if I try something for the first time and it just eats it, I'm more confident on stage. So now I can just kind of, own it and be like, well, that one didn't work and we're going to move on. And I think people just like that. And like when I was earlier on, you're so insecure that you just start freaking out and then you just go into your next joke while in the back of your head, you're like freaking out and everything's getting worse and you start feeling the sweat. And I've had some bad experiences up there. That's part of the game.
So a lot of comedy, I know, is testing it out though. So is there a process before you actually take it up to one of your bigger gigs?
Yeah, the ideal for me is like, and honestly, the Bay Area is really helpful for this because sometimes in LA there's industry at the shows and you really want to do good stuff or a headlining night, your fans are there. So a lot of times I will go up to the Bay Area for a whole weekend and just not announce that I'm doing shows anywhere and just pop in on a bunch of local shows that are lower risk and just try a bunch of new stuff and then get some data on what's working and what jokes I want to work on moving into other stuff. But there's a whole life cycle of a joke where it's like, you write it down, you try it once, and then it enters the like, ooh, this might get to stay realm, and you're adding stuff to it and working on it. And over time, it, ideally turns into a staple that you want in every set.
Are you pretty easily recognized by different cities? Like, obviously you have the most iconic fucking hair of the three of us, but like, do you just get sought out like in public? Are you that famous?
It really depends. Mostly not, but it's happening more and more, like definitely in the Bay Area. Like I was at the Niners game and a few people came up and I was like, oh, it's really cool to have the hometown love and support. I think that means the most, but yeah, I was just in an Uber and this, the like Ukrainian driver just 2 days ago was dropping us at a bar and he was just like, I love your clips. And I was just looking at my friends like, huh? I'm fucking sweet. So it's still pretty new to me actually. So whenever it happens, I'm like, dude, hell yeah.
That's a good spot to be, dude. So Bay Area sports, what teams did you grow up following? What teams do you still follow today? And where does your heart and passion lie? Because you are down there in the Southland.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think when the Sharks win a cup, like me and my boys will be flipping buses. Like it's going to be a long time. So hopefully we don't throw our hips out. But yeah, so I grew up with season tickets to the Sharks and like played hockey at Sharks Ice. And then baseball was what took over because, I was better at it and really loved it. So Sharks, Giants, Niners, Warriors, that's pretty much the squad. I remember listening to KNBR growing up. I remember listening to you on there, Eric, with my brother. You were going on about like backing your car into someone's spot as like the ultimate power move. And we just thought it was the funniest thing in the world. I have this random vivid memory of it. So whenever I back into his spot, I'm like, fuck yeah, dude, I let him know.
Yeah, but I think the other thing about being like a great backer upper, like there's something to be said. I mean, if anyone's got a reverse race around the world that I can join, I just ripped down my driveway and you can see it, dude. There's snow, there's ice. It is an absolute mess right now. And it was just like this, like blindly as I have this really sharp, almost 90-degree turn. Just
yeah.
So yeah. 100%.
I'm that dude. You got to be that dude. Like you got to do that with confidence. It says a lot about you as a person.
And you're ready to go whenever you come out. It's not like this like meager week like backed up here. Look at all the big fucking trucks too, man, with like the big cowboys getting out of them, like the big swinging dicks that want to announce their presence with authority. They're always backing into spots.
Yeah, exactly.
Joey, where did your while we're talking about the Niners, where did your heart lie this season? With Jimmy, Lance going down, and then Purdy coming in. Like, walk us through the roller coaster of emotion that most certainly we all felt.
What a wild experience. I think it taught us all a lot about our psyche as people. And I think what I learned is that I'm an optimist. So when it was Trey time, I was like, you know what? He's a big dude. He's got a lot of tools. This could be some next level shit. And then that wasn't working out. And I was starting to turn on it. And then it really didn't work out. And he got hurt. And then Jimmy came back in. And I was like, what a story. You know, this guy's great. I was like, I missed Jimmy. It fired me up. I was stoked to have him back. And then he goes down. And then Purdy Mania was absolutely amazing. And then when he got hurt in the NFC Championship game, I started turning on everyone. I was like, why the fuck isn't Trey back? Jimmy, you fucking stop smiling those pretty goddamn teeth on the sideline, or I'm going to lose my fucking mind. So, yeah, I was very week to week, to be honest.
So Eric mentioned, so we went to the Super Bowl. No Filter was there. And obviously I'm a diehard Niners fan. And, you know, I had all these questions because we went to media day and I had all these questions that I was going to ask my heroes. Like, you know, I love Jimmy. And I'm a little crushed that he's gone and, you know, obviously good for him. But, you know, whatever. But I had all these questions I was going to ask the Niners. And when the Eagles won, I just pretty much just scrapped it. And I just asked them just a bunch of bullshit. And so now there's like videos.
Mailed it in.
Dude, I totally mailed it in. Like I asked Gardner Minshew, I'm going to ask you the same question later, but I asked Gardner Minshew, I was like, what's the strongest animal in the wild you think you could kill with your bare hands? Like, where do we draw the line? Yeah. He told me, he said, he had a good answer. He said, I couldn't do any bear, but I could definitely take on like a coyote, depending on how hungry it was. He was a good dude though, but
he seems fun. He seems like a fun guy to have on a locker room guy. And that was kind of when I got cut from the UCSD team. I was like, look, I don't know how much on-field impact I was going to have, but you guys are missing out on a lot of locker room. Dude, Elmer, I'm a fucking glue guy. They would have loved me over there.
I love it. It's the truth, man. It's not about having the best players. It's about having the right players.
Yeah.
I went over that the other day with Herb Brooks. We have a 12U, considered like a 12U national team, like a baseball team. Most of the kids are from Sacramento area, but we've somehow, you know, risen to prominence and we're up there, the second ranked team in the West, 8th in the country. Who's counting? But we now are going up against these teams, Joey, that I'm not kidding you, where it used to be like one or two of the guys used to be these puberty guys that are 6 feet and growing mustaches, and their moms have mustaches too, and it's just shit. But now I feel like we're facing, you know, these teams more and more where if there's 11 players on the team, like 9 of the 11 are fucking 5'10" and bigger. And so my big message to our kids last time, because we only have a couple of the big kids, and then the rest of our kids are just, 11 and 12-year-old kids. And it was just like, look, dudes, I ain't looking for the best guys. I want the right ones. You guys are it. And they're baseball players, and they're savages, and they won't back down. And when the little dude that's 5 feet freaking whacks one in the gap, and the guy who's 6 feet and throwing 78 on the mound is just like getting whiplash because we're yeah, that's everything. And then you have those guys, and this is true, because you kind of joke around about the glue thing or whatever, but that's fucking everything, man. It is to have to keep the relations here. How do you think those A's teams? This is the one thing they missed in Moneyball. Those A's teams won 20 consecutive games in the ultimate the major leagues. Dude, it's a money grab, bro. It's players, owners, everyone. Like everyone's trying to get theirs. The only way you ever win 20 fucking games in a row is simply by coming together as a team, not giving a shit who gets the credit, all of the above. So, Joey, if you want a spot on my 12U team, I'll take it.
I'm ready, dude. I'm a puberty guy. I'm ready to ball. But you're exactly right. And I think one of the coolest things about baseball is there are super teams made all the time. And it feels like they never work because there seems like no matter what, there is a space for magic in the game. And like the one year I mentioned that we won our league, it was not my best year. Like the previous year, I hit 430. The year we win league, I hit like 350 is one of the captions, which in a shitty league in high school, you should be hitting better than that. But what we also did was we would, before every game, we would go into the dugout and we would pray to this one lone palm tree that you could see up on a hill. And we would lead these like Egyptian prayer chants. And the other team would be like stretching and doing their bands. And we would all be in there with my boy just going, all praises to the lone palm. And we'd be chanting and bowing. And they'd be like, what the fuck is this team doing? And we just loved it. And there was like, we believed in ourselves. We believed in the magic. It was fun to show up to work. It was not people with a bunch of expectation. And like those teams can win in baseball, even at the professional level, no matter how much payroll is sitting on the other side. And that's what makes baseball great.
So, Joey, I don't know if you ever heard of the Savannah Bananas, but
I follow the Savannah Bananas, and I didn't even know you were involved until recently because I fucking love the content, dude. It was getting shared to me by all my baseball boys for like months.
Yeah, it's amazing. So
it's awesome.
I was with them last year. I'm still with them in different sort of capacity. They're playing 91 games this year. Last year was 14.
Yeah.
I managed the team, and it was so fucking awesome and refreshing to watch these guys go out there and do what they did on a nightly basis. The free and fearless were the two words we use. And a lot of this probably relates back to comedy, right? I 100% know it does, play baseball, or if we're going to do a podcast or a radio show or any of the stuff we do, like play free, play fearless. And when we got these guys in that mode and doing that, and like the fun comes with the freedom, the fun comes with the fearlessness, and then the results are the byproduct of all of that. So that was, the real big thing that we continue just to try to hammer home to them. It's like, dudes, look, don't be afraid to fail. D.R. Meadows is the fucking center fielder for these guys. He just caught a ball. I'll send you the clip, but basically doing it back. Henry and I were doing an alternative broadcast, which if at any point you want to come join us for one.
I'd be down for sure.
Holy shit. Yes, please.
Yeah, I would do that.
Dude, we'll stream their games on here, right? So we'll all be watching the game. We'll just be broadcasting it. So, I just play what you call it, play-by-play or color in. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
Three dudes watching a game, and this guy pulls off a backflip in the middle of it. And the funny thing is that, like literally in the middle of catching a ball, and then the guy shows up and he's on a trampoline. He's jumping up and down on a trampoline, and he ends up hitting the ball. But there's just one of these antics after another. You realize how much failure is involved to get to that point, to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And to be able to fail and laugh at it. And then there's also this balance, which we really struggled with last year because the players weren't as good. And there was this, it's like, if you can't make the routine play, and if we're chucking the ball all around the field, like none of this shit works, man. Like none of it.
And that's an interesting thing that I was thinking about, because it's like, it's so built for the social media age, the dancing, all of it's so fun. The sketches are great, but it does not work if you suck ass. That ruins everything. In every sport, every team, you notice their uniforms are cool when they start winning. Yeah. It's like, damn, I want to buy that jersey. That team looks really cool. What classic uniforms. It doesn't look that way when you're 2-18. Shout out to the softball team.
Softball girls, full circle.
And I talked to the girls last night, but I said it. I used the Bananas as a reference. It's look, in order to have fun, like there's a process in having fun. And the other thing, and I hate this, I'm sure it's the same sort of thing that we talked about earlier with you being a comedian, like, yo, Joey, be funny. It's like, just whatever, like, have fun. It's like, you can't force fun. And that was the big message. Like, I don't need you guys. So you're at 1 to 10, right? You're always on this scale. And if the Bananas have a tendency, and we did really early on last year too, as we came out of the gates, first ever world tour, 14 cities, like all this thing, we can't live at a 10, dudes. Like we just can't do it. It's too much. We're gonna get exhausted. Like, listen, let's stay at a 7, and we will perform better as a 7. I always said 80% will get you 100 when it comes to like swinging a baseball bat. Tension-free barrel release. 80% will get you 100. 80%, 70, 80% will get us to where we need to be the goddamn fucking best entertainers. And with these people, when they go home, they're going to be telling all of their friends, all of their family, everyone they could freaking scream on mountaintops about how great the Savannah Bananas were. So
yeah, it goes back to that free and fearless thing. Like, it's hard to do that when you're at 100. I mean, it's really funny whenever you see like the clip that you saw where I was talking about marriage. That was all material that I saved for that set because it was a taping, and I was really happy with how it came out. But hanging out with all the comics before the taping, it's always people's like least relaxed they ever feel. People never feel like it's their best set. Like, usually the highest produced stuff is not usually even the best representation of yourself because you're a little tight. You're not at that 80%. Whereas sometimes on a loose night where you're like, yeah, let's just fuck around a little bit, you'll have these magical sets where people are rocking so hard that they can't even see straight. And it feels better because you just were a little bit more relaxed.
Joey, a little off topic. I think it was the Pierce 69 stand-up. You revealed something to the audience that you are 5'9". I did not know that. I pictured you as like a commanding 6 foot. Like that. I thought you were a footer, and all these clips and just how you carry yourself. Like, you are doing the 5'9" crew proud, by the way.
Oh, are you one of us?
No, I'm a footer. I thought it was.
Oh, you piece of shit. Dude, fuck you. That's why you brought this up. I understand exactly what's happening, dude. You just been patronizing me for how tall I actually am, you rat fuck. Listen, I do fucking project at a 6 foot level. I do have 6 foot vibes, but
it was a surprise to me because Byrnesy's. I think Byrnesy, you got like a half inch on me with the hair and with your Patrick Ewing shoes. I think you got a half inch.
If I was 6 foot, I wouldn't do comedy, dude. I literally would have probably played professional sports, and I'd be in a bungalow just fucking people right now. But instead, I dedicated my life to making other people laugh.
Dude, you're killing the game. I have a lot of short friends, and not, by no means is 5'9" short. I got friends that are like in the 5'6" range. Average height, as you said, it was medium. You said you're the perfect medium. That was the best fucking bit I've ever seen, man. That was amazing. But no, I wanted to hear you just riff on that because I literally listened. I was like, dude, that's so golden. But
yeah, no, I've actually thought about writing that kind of that joke is how I don't, like it's like my one thing is that I'm not like taller, but I don't feel like that,
No, man, you carry yourself as 6 feet. Yeah. You are 6 feet. You sold me at 6 feet. I saw it. I was like, he's one of us, Eric.
Joey, what's it like being around the other comics? How is your relationship with other comics? And I know it can be a very difficult industry, a very emotional industry. You got a lot of people that I have dealt with, mental illnesses because of that, living at the 10 when they're on and then, being off. Obviously, Robin Williams would be, the first guy that I would think of. But then there's, a good buddy of mine as well, Brody Stevens, who a few years ago took his life, man. And it was just like heartbreaking. So where's your relationship with those guys? And then what's the approach when it comes to that? And is it just me, or is mental illness a bigger issue potentially with comedians than the rest of the general population?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the first part of it in terms of my relationship with other comedians is one of my favorite things about stand-up. You meet incredibly entertaining people. It can be difficult at times. I mean, when you go into a green room and you're the one no one knows and everyone's kind of on and everyone's riffing and like you're going to catch shit from some of the top, shit givers in the world, you got to be able to stand your own. So there are definitely times where it can be stressful. I do think that is helpful experience for sure. Yeah. But what's been a lot more common is that I've met some comics that are like heroes of mine that have been great and awesome and super helpful and a huge part of my life and really supportive and great. And like, that's just such a gift. So, in general, I feel like I've met way more great people than anything else doing it. And it's one of my favorite things about doing stand-up. On the mental illness front, I think it's tough because on the one hand, I understand why people who have that are drawn to it. You know, if you imagine like if being alone is really dark and depressing, but then you have this one experience where you get to go out and be in a room full of people laughing, that's like got to be the greatest remedy for that. Temporary perhaps, but like it's got to be this beautiful thing that brings you out of it and keeps people going maybe longer than they would have been able to. So it gives people, you know, definitely hope and a reason to keep going, hopefully for a while. But the flip side of that is it can be a very cold business and you know, it can feel pretty lonely at times as well. And it can feel like your prospects aren't working or things aren't going anywhere. And when it's been your only dream for a long time, I think that's really, really hard too. So I think that the main thing is, and I think people are good about this now, is just trying to think of the comedy community as a community. And we're all competing and all that. But like, I think just trying to support one another, because at the end of the day, there aren't a ton of us in the world. And I think we should see it as a fellowship.
Yeah, dude,
Wow.
I think ultimately, Joey, like if you continue to go back to your why, because I think Henry could attest to this. Sometimes we feel like we're spinning our wheels over a no filter. And
Yeah.
think I felt the same way in baseball. I felt the same way at MLB Network. And you go through these phases. I got into endurance sports, and you feel like, man, like where's the progress? And you're putting your heart and soul and life into this. And you know, you want to see these sort of awards. And then the other thing is that from a television perspective, and I've seen it with so many guys, and a lot of guys that I couldn't tell you how much respect I have for them, and you know, just from a professional standpoint. And then, you know, off the air, these guys are dicks. Like some of the biggest pieces of shits I've ever met in my life. Like,
Yeah, there's no room for that. That pisses me off so much.
I hate it, right? Like it's so. I just think with all of that, dude, like a lot of them have gotten sucked into the trap of I'm on, I'm off, I'm off, and that could be. There's times where I know when I've gotten off the air, and I just feel zapped, and it not necessarily with no filter, because it's so free and flowing and unstructured and everything else. But when you're set to quote unquote a routine, and when you're set to, you know, I'm coming on air, and you know we're doing MLB tonight, and I got this, I'm doing this breakdown, this. You get off, and it's just like, man, like, dude, I don't want to talk to anybody, like including my wife, and shit. That was a point of contention.
Yeah, I would imagine. Yeah,
right. You get done, and you're like, she's like, so honey, like, let me tell you about this and this and this, and you're like, how was your? I'm like, just
yeah. It's really interesting. It's interesting how all these dreams that you can have, you know, when you're going through the experience of being at them, it doesn't feel like you're necessarily living a dream, right? You talked about feeling like you're spinning your wheels when you were a professional athlete, when you were on MLB Network, when you're launching this project that you're passionate about. And it's like, it's going to feel like that. There are just going to be times when it feels like that, where everyone else is probably looking at you being like, are you fucking kidding me? This guy's living the coolest life of all time. So yeah, I try to like that's a fair feeling, and you need to think about like why it's feeling that way. But I always try to like, because every day I'm always like, why are we not further? Where do I need to be? How do you need to get somewhere? I always remember randomly it was like Matthew McConaughey's Oscar speech where he was like talking about people that he wants to make proud. And one of them was like, basically, if I can make me from a year ago jealous of me now, then I've done a good job. And I try to add that perspective onto things sometimes, because that's pretty much always been true, at least for the last several years. And that's a good way to measure like, all right, yeah, I'm in the trenches and I am grinding. And sometimes that really sucks, but have I come a long way? Should I be happy with that? Maybe it's time to appreciate that, give myself some space to do that before we get back in and get to work again.
That's
Dude,
incredible.
I think that's huge, man. It's about that grind and knowing the grind. I can't tell you how many professional athletes I run across where we'll talk about it, and it's just like, man, I just wish I enjoyed it a little bit more. And,
Yeah.
And you get so laser focused, but I will tell you something else is that, part of what made, whether it was, me, a decent ball player, or these other guys great, is their ability to put the blinders on and be undeterred by everything else that's going on. So you have these people telling you how great you are, and you have these people telling you over here fucking how much you suck. And it's just like, I'm staying here, I'm focusing on what I need to focus on. And if you want to be great, you've got to be obsessed. You have to be obsessed with your craft, and not just being obsessed with being great. You have to be obsessed with the work that allows you to be great. And that inevitably then motivates us to put that work in. And even though we're not always going to love the work, you got to love the fucking grind, man. You got to.
Yeah, and it has to come back to that one thing, that craft that you care about, because otherwise it's so easy to end up in the noise. I mean, I can post a crowd work clip that I think is funny, and then it's not performing in the first 3 hours, and I'm like, what the fuck, dude? And then it's like, you know what feels better is, instead of like watching my notifications on my phone, going like, well, why don't I just go write a better joke and try it tonight, and maybe I'll work on that for a while. And it's like, it's always the actual work that you started, that all this shit is about, that when you get back to that, it's like, oh, this feels good. Mm-hmm. It's all the external shit that feels weird, but I'm working on the thing that I wanted to start working on. That always feels good.
Joey, I don't want to take up too much of your time. You've been fucking incredible. I mean, the second guest on the EB Adventure, I would be so satisfied with never doing another episode again. Obviously we will, but you pearled this episode. Any big shows you got coming up? Any big projects, movies, porn shoots you got on the docket that you could, give us a little discount for?
Yeah, the porn shoots will be popping all year for sure. Mostly solos, but I just kind of announced my first ever tour, my first ever headlining tour. So I'll be in Tempe, Oklahoma City, Fort Worth, Austin, Sacramento, Portland, Tacoma, Edmonton, Vancouver, Chicago, Nashville, Bloomington, and some more. We'll definitely add some Bay Area on the back end. And but yeah, JoeyAvery.com. If you want to hear the kind of the 10-minute set that we were talking about, that's up on there, as are all the shows. And then the Instagram is new clips every week. Same with TikTok, and it's all Joey Avery. So thanks for having me, guys.
Of course. And you're in Sacramento. I already did the research. Like May 7th, right? That's the Sacramento tour.
That's
okay.
Yep.
My family moved to Sac. We're still Warriors fans, but I guess they're Kings fans now too, but that's a whole nother thing. But I gotta go to your show May 7th. Get me what pass backstage, front row.
I got
hot dog.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it'd be insane.
I got you. Insane. I got you. Yeah. Come through. We'll kick it.
Joey,
dude, I'd love it.
When are you in Tempe? When does the tour kick off?
The tour technically, I did a show in Miami last week, and that was the first. And then I'll be in Tempe March 23rd. So that'll be a week from Thursday. And I'll also be getting out to Arizona on Saturday and just going to spring training and drinking with my dad and his friends and some of my friends, and just being a dude and watching some ball. And it's going to be great.
You got it. Wait, you have to answer the one question, though, the wildlife question. It's just sort of my thing now. And let me just preface, when I asked Byrnes what the strongest animal that he thinks he could beat with his bare hands in the wild, he didn't even hesitate. He said rhinoceros.
Wow.
Yes, that's what he said. And I almost believe it because he was so confident. Like, I just want to believe him. What is yours?
Okay. I'm going to go with a prepubescent boy. You bring a 12-year-old around me, that kid's fucking done. Otherwise, I don't know about my skill set, but I'll fuck up any member of Eric's baseball team.
Oh, I love it, dude. I got a couple that could give you a run, though, man. But
if they got any mustache, I'm out, dude.
Only two of them. Well, one's got a full beard. The other one's just got that pencil thin mustache.
Yeah, keep beard guy away from me. That would be tough.
Awesome,
good
Joey.
Shit.
Really appreciate you, man.
All right, pleasure, guys. Great to meet you.
All right. Dude.
Awesome. Good shit.
Peace.
Henry.
You.
See ya.